Night vision is becoming more and more of an essential every day when it comes to being a prepared citizen or a Minuteman. Everybody has access to night vision, especially here in the United States, and not everyone who has it is actually a good guy, which means you need to have some way to equalize the playing field when it comes to any type of near-peer kinetic conflict. And with the way the world is going, it does seem that that becomes more and more of a real possibility every single day. So, I'm very new to night vision, and this is a new and expensive yet complicated endeavor that I'm trying to share with the community here just to show what the benefits and the value of having it as part of your preparedness plan would be. So what I'm going to do is share every piece of kit that I put together specifically for night vision use to give you some ideas about what you might be looking for or what you might be getting into if you do decide to go down the path of night vision. It is not inexpensive. It is very expensive and it's complicated. It's not something you can learn overnight. Just being out and wearing it and trying to get used to your spatial awareness can be problematic enough. So let's get started with the different pieces of gear that I've got in my night kit as of right now, just to give you some ideas as to what I've put together and give you some product concepts that are out there to give you some help with figuring out your path in the night vision realm. And then I'm also looking for any feedback, criticism, or suggestions that you have as part of this community because like I said, I'm very new to this and I am not an expert on night vision or anything related to it. I'm just trying my best to understand it, practice with it, and become more proficient at using it for what it was designed for because it's not an easy thing to do. Trust me, I'm definitely struggling when it comes to being able to move freely and operate in a way that is efficient while wearing and using night vision to the full extent. So let's see, I've got some notes over here that I'm going to be reading under night vision to try to force myself to get used to that as well when it comes to focusing on things that are close up and actually reading. So now, the first thing that I put together here was storage, because storing these expensive devices is a big deal. So right here I have a Coltac brain bucket. And what's cool about Coltac is they make their products in the USA, and this one's specifically designed to house your helmet or like what I have on is a skull mount or whatever you're using to mount your night vision equipment on. It can hold your night vision goggles or devices as well. And then what's nice is that it's completely impenetrable by UV. So they made it specifically for storing night vision devices. It also has some extra pockets and stuff like that, and it's made in the USA. Now I do want to mention Coltac did send this over for me to check out, but it was upon my request, as I have other Coltac products that I've purchased myself that I felt did a good job, and I wanted to see what else some of their stuff was capable of. So Coltac Brain Bucket, this runs $115 and it's just for storage. So that's very expensive. Now you don't necessarily need it, but if you want a padded case to keep your very expensive gear in that's not gonna let UV into it, that might be an option you wanna take, okay? Because storage is obviously one of the first things you have to concern yourself with because where are you gonna put this stuff, right? So the next thing I put together was how am I gonna transport it if I'm not necessarily wearing it or needing it, or maybe it's daytime or who knows what else, right? And one thing that I kind of decided upon when using a form of backpack while wearing night vision, getting used to the way it works and getting used to my spatial awareness and everything else, was that I wanted something very slim and streamlined so I wouldn't have to worry about anything bulky, getting snagged on stuff because I'm not necessarily walking around understanding my space as well as I used to, right? So I decided to go with something much smaller, and especially because of my use case scenario being more so patrolling my property at night or investigating, stuff that's going on the property at night, especially when it comes to things like coyotes and whatnot. So I don't need necessarily like a huge ruck or a ton of equipment. I just need enough on me to sustain myself for short periods of time, and then possibly resupply myself if things get dicey and not necessarily be completely out of, let's just say, luck when it comes to anything that I might need access to. So I went ahead and got an Eberly Stock Bandit. Now, Eberly Stock Bandit is a really nice day pack. And one thing I really like about it is that it has a webbing on the front that can easily hold your helmet and your night vision devices for while you're not wearing them. So if you're maybe trekking or having to move quickly, or if you are out in a daytime environment, you don't need that stuff on at the time, then you have the ability to stow it without having to remove your access to it or without having to consistently wear it. And it's also very streamlined. It's thinner than the profile of my entire body. So what I like about that is that I can walk through any narrow doorway or any kind of narrow environment when it comes to trees or whatever else and not worry about it getting snagged on stuff, because if my body can fit through it, then so can it. And when you're wearing night vision, it's very difficult to really understand just how you are in relation to some of those snagging type objects or doorways or whatever else it would be. So I like this Everly Stock Bandit quite a bit. And of course, inside I just have some really basic sustainment stuff. I've got, batteries, I've got a little bit of food, I've got water, I've got rain gear. And then I also have, in this particular pack, my concealed carry pistol in a holster with an extra magazine. And the reason behind that was kind of as a E&E type situation. If I found myself out somewhere where things got a little bit crazy and I had to suddenly disappear into the woods or disappear in the sense of not being the same person I was before, right? Then I have access to my concealed carry pistol. I can throw it on, not be completely unarmed, but then I can ditch the rest of my kit and still have a way to protect myself without giving away the fact that I was the same guy who was sneaking around in the woods with a rifle and everything else, right? So, Everly Stock Bandit, really nice backpack. And this was actually provided by Midway USA, which is the biggest supporter of the channel. And they don't necessarily just send me stuff at random and say, hey, take a look. But I request things, they send it to me, and I usually have purposes behind what it is I'm requesting. So I did want to mention that. Everly Stock is a really good brand of backpack. I really haven't had any negative things to say about their stuff. And I really appreciate what the Bandit has brought to the equation when it comes to being able to be low profile, slim, and really easy to wear while wearing night vision. Not to mention the fabric and material seems to do pretty well under night vision in the sense of not having a huge IR signature, which is nice because it doesn't give off this giant radioactive glow when you look at it under the night vision. Because one of the things we have to consider is that other people are going to have night vision, even the ones we don't want to have night vision. And so with that consideration in mind, you have to kind of at least understand what it is you're using that might create situations for you that would be more dangerous because you're giving off this signal, right? And we'll talk about that more here in just a second. Now, the Everly Stock Bandit, it's $150. So a really nice, well-made backpack, well put together, and at least for the idea of having it conform to your spatial awareness needs, I found it to be useful in that regard. So definitely like it quite a bit for that reason, okay? Now, let's talk about what's on my head, because this is actually a really interesting piece of kit, and then obviously a very expensive piece of the equation, especially once you add in the night vision optics themselves, all right? So this helmet right here is actually an Ops Core skull mount. Now, would I suggest everyone get an Ops Core skull mount over maybe a bump helmet when they cost about the same? Because this mount is, or this helmet, which it's kind of like a helmet, kind of not. Basically, it doesn't add bump protection or ballistic protection, but it does everything else that you would want a helmet to do when it comes to mounting night vision devices on it, right? Well, it runs $525. So you could buy a bump helmet for that as well. And so if you're going to start out, you might want to just get a bump helmet just because it has more purpose, right? But what I do like about the skull mount is that it's highly adjustable, which means you can make it about as comfortable as you want it to be. It definitely works best with a single monocular instead of running binos or something like that. So the less weight you put on it, the more functional it is, or at least that's what I've found in my experience so far. And one thing I do like about it is that because it's not a fully enclosed helmet, is that it lets your head breathe, which means it's not as hot, which means it gives you a little bit more endurance in the sense of being able to be out in the heat and sweating and everything else. You get to cool off a little bit better, and it is more comfortable in that regard at least. So what I do like it for is kind of like basic preparedness, not necessarily for going out and getting into some kind of a fight or something, but if you had to go out and just check your perimeter without bringing up too much equipment or gear with you, or if you wanted to, I don't know, do something very basic like change a tire without letting everyone know that you were broken down on the side of the road, or even as something as simple as driving a vehicle, like this would do a very good job at that without having to give you all the extra downsides of the extra weight and coverage and everything else provided by a helmet. So there are some reasons why you might want something like this over a helmet, but my suggestion, I guess, as of right now would be if you're starting off and you really only have a limited budget and you're not trying to get too crazy with the whole thing, maybe to start with a bump helmet so you have a little bit of everything when it comes to the lightweight aspect of not going ballistic, but also the protection aspect of having a bump over something like this skull mount. So that's just my opinion, but I don't mind the skull mount. It definitely has a level of comfort that you can achieve because it has 3 adjustable rotating knobs that allow you to kind of fit it exactly to your head. Now, next on the list is the mount itself, which is the Wilcox G24 mount. Now, there are a lot of other options out there, but this thing is really expensive, and this is what hooks the night vision device onto your helmet or your skull mount or whatever you're using, and this thing runs $525 also. So you're talking about a mount for a helmet that costs the same as each other, right? So the entire package just became over $1,000 and you haven't even added the night vision yet. That's why this is a very expensive thing, but I'm trying my best to kind of segue everybody into the topic so that you have some ideas about what will or won't work for you, or even if it's just completely out of the question, because that just might be the case. And that's fine, because if you know that, at least you can prepare to avoid some of the issues of giving yourself away if somebody else does have night vision, or maybe learn some ways to defeat it using tactics like, outside lighting and everything else, right? So what else is on here? Well, I'm using a pano bridge. So right now I only have one monocular hooked up. I have one NL914C, which is basically a PVS 14, and the pano bridge is actually set up to be able to use two and make them into a binocular set, basically, right? Well, I like the pano bridge better than using something like a J-arm, or even like the Noise Fighter. I believe it's the X14, which is another like single monocular arm that I've used with this setup. The pano bridge offers more adjustment. It offers more panning, obviously, so I can get the NL914C into position of my eye much better than I could with a singular J-arm. So in all honesty, even though I'm running one monocular, I'm still using the pano bridge to mount it, because it has better range of adjustment, which means I can get it to line up just with my eye where I need it to be. So that's why I went that route. Now the pano bridge itself is $500. So we haven't even got to the night vision yet, and you can see how expensive this whole endeavor is becoming. But if you want to do this, you do want to do it right, and you want to make sure you have the good quality stuff. You don't want to buy the $80 G24 mount off of Amazon and find out halfway through a situation that it broke and you lost your $10,000 set of night vision goggles, right? So just putting that out there, because that is a thing that easily can be done. You can get a lot of counterfeit crap online, but it is going to be crap, and that's just what it is. So I can't help that, unfortunately. All right, so I also have on this setup, before we get into the actual night vision itself, I just want to finish off everything that's on the actual headset here I have going on, okay? I used Unity Tactical Mark 2.0s, which are $72, and Unity Tactical SARA kit, or SARA kit, which is $63, to mount some Sordin Supreme Pro X with LED hearing protection. And the reason I use them is because they're very comfortable, they're high quality, they're durable, and you can mount them to something like this skull mount as part of your kit, so that you have not only hearing protection, but you have the amplified hearing, which it provides you with, so you can have better awareness of your surroundings during any kind of a situation. And then as soon as a gunshot goes off, they cut out, so it protects your hearing still. And you can also link them into your comms. So I'm running a very rudimentary comms set right now, which is basically a Baofeng hooked up to a shoulder mic that has an auxiliary port that I can plug right into my hearing protection, my Sordins. And honestly, I mean, it works. So yeah, is it like a poor man's comm setup? Like pretty much, other than the Sordins themselves, because these are $300. Now, the LED is kind of nice. It has a little LED right on the front here. And what's cool about that is that it's very, very dim, very low light. So if you had to do some admin stuff, but you don't have to pull out like a flashlight or something like that, you can turn on the LED just on the headset here, and then have something right in front of you that gives you a tiny bit of light. And it kind of takes the position of putting a light mounted to your helmet or something like that if you don't need something ultra bright. And since I don't have the space to do all that mounting stuff with the skull mount compared to an actual bump helmet, it kind of saves some of that space by still providing a secondary lighting source. So I do like that about the Sordins quite a bit. They take AAA batteries, I think, maybe AA. I think they're AAA. Either way, they're really hard to get in and out of the housing. So just be aware of that. And also installing the SARA kit was not easy. So if you're gonna do this route, just make sure you have some mechanical inclination, or maybe get a buddy to help you out, because I found it to be a little bit difficult when it came to mounting the Unity Mark IIs with the SARA kit to the Sordins. It was a process, let's just say, and I'm pretty sure I no longer have a warranty. Just gonna throw that out there. Now, one last thing is on this skull mount, and that is the Unity Tactical Spark IR. The Spark is basically a disposable device right here on the back. I think if I turn it on right now, you can see it. You should probably be able to see it now, and then I'll turn it off. And we'll find out. I mean, can I see that? I don't know. I think I should be able to see it through my night vision right here, so I think it's off now. But basically what it does is it allows others who are using night vision to see you and know where you are. So for like safety, if you're at like a shooting course with some buddies, you want to make sure everybody knows where each other is. At the same time, if you're just tracking each other, hiking through the woods or something, and you're not concerned about somebody else using night vision to find you, then you can use that for that reason as well. Or if you just need to leave breadcrumbs or like a marker for somebody to come help you with like an extract or whatever, you can use all the Unity spark for those purposes. For me, I just have it on there because in case I do have a situation where I'm out shooting with some buddies at night, I want to make sure we stay safe. And then if I do need to signal for help and I know that the people coming to help me have night vision and maybe the people I'm concerned about don't, then it gives me a good option to do that. They're disposable. You can't change the batteries on them. They literally just last however long they last, and then you throw them away, and they're like 16 bucks a piece. So yeah, they're good for what they were designed for, but it's not something that you're going to be able to keep up and running. It's literally like one-time use in many ways. So just wanted to put that out there, but I thought it was a good device to grab a hold of, okay? So let's see here. This thing is still on. There we go. All right, I wanted to talk that entire time with it on just to give you some weird feelings and maybe possibly some kind of photosensitive seizure of some kind. So I apologize for that. Now, let's talk about the actual night vision unit. This is a Nightline Inc. NL914C, okay? Nightline Inc., huge supporter of this channel. Now listen, if you go to Nightline Inc.'s website and you want to order night vision, you will literally have to call them and talk to them, which is great because they walk you through the whole process. They tell you what type of accessories, whatever else you might need with it. They ask you what your use case scenario is. They try to craft the entire package around what it is you want to do. So you get that personable service. And if you mention that Magic Prepper sent you or that you heard about them from Magic Prepper, you'll get 15% off of your purchase through them, which is huge when it comes to the cost of night vision devices. So this NL914C, right? The lowest end model that they put out, which is still very good, okay? And here's the thing. Nightline Inc. provides a lot of night vision equipment to a lot of different entities out there, right? But the big thing is that they are a direct manufacturer. So you're buying straight from the source. So all the money you're spending on these devices goes straight to the quality of the device. You're cutting out the middleman. There's no wholesalers or distributors or retailers involved or any of that kind of stuff. So every penny spent is towards high quality equipment, okay? Now, if you get the lowest end NL914C, which is still much better than a lot of the other stuff that's out there, you're gonna spend $3,500 for just the one, okay? Don't even mention if you're trying to get to two, because we'll talk about that here in a second. But if you use the fact that you were sent there by Magic Prepper and you get that 15% off, then it's $2,975. So you save a lot of money. Is it still very expensive? 100% yes. And I know a lot of you in the comments are gonna say that now, right? Like, that's insane. I could buy a car for that. It's all about what your priorities are and what it is you're trying to accomplish, okay? And if this is something you want to do, then these are the prices that you will encounter throughout this process. And that's just, unfortunately, the way it is with this technology, because you're talking about something that's extremely expensive because it's extremely advantageous for what it brings to the table in regards to being able to protect yourself and your family and deal with an SHTF type scenario, okay? Now, why is the NL914C a good choice? Okay, let's talk about that really quick just so you're aware of why these are so expensive, but also why going through Nightline Inc. might be a good option for you, okay? So, first off, they have a 75-hour battery life that uses one CR123, which a lot of devices use different types of batteries. So CR123 is great because it's the same thing you're going to throw in your weapon light. It's the same thing you're going to throw in your laser aiming module. So CR123, pretty universal and provides an extremely long battery life. So 75 hours on one battery is huge. That means you can get through quite a bit of nights without having to change your battery, right? So what is that? Let's say a night lasts a typical, let's just call it 8 hours, right? So that gets you through almost 10 days or 10 nights while running your night vision 100%. So keep that in mind, okay? Now, it has a push button design, which is good. They come with a variable gain option. They have built-in IR illuminators, which is nice in case you really need to light up the area without having to use like a weapon-mounted light system or a laser aiming module or something like that. You already have built-in IR illuminators right on the device. And there is an automatic brightness control. So it'll definitely help you and make sure that you don't blow your eyes out if you look at something that's too bright, and or if you enter a room that suddenly someone flips the lights on or something like that, it'll automatically adjust to make sure you don't suddenly find yourself very blind. Now, let me see if I can go ahead and turn on that IR illuminator here. Okay, as you can see, I mean, it makes things very bright, and I can see much better now, but you know, it's just an option that's available to you in the device already, which I do find to be beneficial, okay? They weigh about 10 ounces. So 10 ounces for one unit, so it'd be 20 ounces if you got two, and 10 ounces is pretty light when it comes to some of the other similar PVS-14 devices on the market, all right? Now, what's really cool is that Nightline, because they manufacture these and because they're a direct seller, and now they're selling to the civilian market to try to get more of us prepared in a way that pushes us into that next level of preparedness, basically, right? If you buy it from them, what's nice is that they document everything. They put down your serial number. They have your build sheet and your fact sheet all put together in the sense of all the data and everything else about the exact tubes and everything that were used for your device. And if you were to say, buy one NL914C and then come back a year later and say, hey, I'm ready to get two now because I want to go with binos. Well, they can go back into your build sheet and try to help you select another tube that's going to be of similar, let's just call it quality, in the sense of making sure they match up as well as possible, which is just not something you're going to be able to do if you were to buy some random PVS 14 from a retailer and then buy another one a year from them. I mean, they could look very different from each other. So you do get that access to that kind of like personalized upgrade service. And they do offer the ability to help you upgrade throughout your tenure with them as a customer. So I think that's a really good reason for why you might want to go through them versus just buying random PVS 14s off the internet. Now, that's the night vision device. These are really nice PVS 14s. The image quality is amazing. The clarity is there. Everything that you want out of it is there for you. And you have a company that is a direct manufacturer that can perform their own repairs and take care of the product. So look, this might sound like a commercial to you guys, but in all honesty, I really appreciate the idea of being able to send all this stuff in right to the manufacturer, have it repaired, have it collimated, have everything done that you need to be done with your night vision devices without having to contact the retailer, then contact the manufacturer, then send things somewhere else. Like, that's a lot of process and that's a lot of steps that you have to go through versus direct from the manufacturer, okay? So, what else is part of my kit? Okay, well, you do need a way to engage under night vision. So, there are some things that you might need for your preparedness-based rifle platform, pistol platform, whatever platform it might be, right? So here I have some examples that I want to share with everybody. First and foremost is going to be the Steiner D-Ball D2. Now this is a laser aiming module or an IR illuminator or whatever you want to call it. But basically what it allows is for me to use IR signatures to aim with under night vision that don't show up for anyone with the naked eye, which means I could be blasting you with a laser and you wouldn't even know it until it was too late. So the idea here, and I'm just kind of like, this is just the laser, and then you can go ahead and show the illuminator, right? And then there's different settings, high, low, you have constant on, momentary, all those things. And you also have a visible laser for daylight use, which is kind of interesting, right? Let's see here. I'm just gonna sign this off to the side here. But yeah, you have a visible laser as well, which is good because it's slave to your IR laser, which means you can zero it during the day and make sure it's good to go at night as well. Having a laser aiming module means you can actively engage with your night vision. That's a really big deal because it makes the entire process of shooting under night vision much easier to acquire your target, much easier to see your target, to get positive identification, and to get that laser on target is much simpler than trying to aim with some kind of other device. Now, that would be one of the main things I'd be looking for if I'm setting up a firearm for night vision specifically, at least so far from what I've found. And the D-Ball D2 is recognized as being, yes, extremely heavy and bulky, but also one of the better performers out there on the civilian market, okay? Now, the next thing that you'd want to do is have the ability to, oh, and by the way, the D-Ball D2 is, let's see, $1,800. Yeah, so really expensive. Now, another thing I have is a Surefire M340V, which is one of their vampire lights. What I like about it is that you have white light, you have the ability to turn it off so you don't have negligent light discharges or anything like that, and you have the ability to use IR. So the IR on the vampire is a little bright, but it does make for good umbrella lighting, and it does give you a backup option if you need IR, but you don't necessarily need the beam focus intensity of your IR illuminator from your laser aiming module. Then you have that ability, and let's say your LAM goes down or something like that, you still have a way to use more IR if need be. So I do like having that option, although I think if you have a laser aiming module, you don't necessarily need the vampire light. It kind of just seems almost like a little redundant. And I will be putting out a video in the future about different ways you can set up your rifles from like a tier perspective of like tier 1, 2, 3, and 4 when it comes to making sure you have night vision capability on a rifle, even if it's not necessarily geared directly towards it. So now, the next thing I would do is make sure I have a passive aiming device. Oh, and by the way, that Surefire is $431. So that's why I said that, because if you already have a laser aiming module, you might save some money by getting just a straight white light and not having to worry about it because you already have a way to put IR out downrange. So just throwing that out there as an option for you. Now, you want the ability to passively aim. It's becoming more and more important. And in fact, for a long time, people were like, yeah, it's kind of dumb, don't worry about it. You want to use a laser aiming module because it's far superior. And in many ways, it is, at least so far in my experience. However, like I said before in the beginning of this conversation, bad guys have night vision too now, right? So if bad guys have night vision, we need to make sure that we don't show them where we are. So having passive aiming capabilities is important, especially if you're in a situation where you know for a fact the people you're worried about have night vision. So passive aiming means you're using something like a red dot sight or a holographic sight that you can see under your night vision without having to activate any type of IR illuminator or IR laser, because that will give away your position in some ways. So I have a Aimpoint Comp M5 mounted on a 1.93-inch ScalarWorks mount, which is tall enough to get in line with my night vision while also having the optical clarity you need in the sense of light transmission, so that I have, Aimpoint quality glass and Aimpoint quality electronics, so I can lower my reticle to an actual night vision level while also still being able to see through the optic. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate that. What's really nice is that on the night vision settings, I can see clearly through my optic. I can see the dot, no problem at all. And I could easily take shots right now without having to put any IR downrange. So just keep that in mind, because having the ability to passively aim is a big deal. And getting passive aiming is a lot cheaper than getting IR active aiming. So you can get something like a Hollow Sun for what, $200? You can put a red dot on your rifle and be able to literally passively aim right off the bat without even having anything else. So it is a cheaper alternative. Now, if you want to go really high end and get Aimpoint and stuff like that, or EOTech even, here's the price here. Comp M5, $922. The ScalarWorks mount is $150. This is not a cheap setup. I know. I'm explaining it all to you just to give you all the ideas that I have. And that's just is what it is, okay? And I want your suggestions and your feedback. I really do. Now, what's the last thing I would put on a night vision geared firearm because of wanting to make sure I have access to, some of the benefits you might want when under night vision? Well, one of the first products I ever got from Coltac is their suppressor cover. This is their HTP suppressor cover. And what's nice about the HTP is it's their high temp version. So it can go through a lot of cyclic fire before getting too hot, right? But what I like about it under night vision is the fact that not only does the suppressor not get hot to the touch to where you're gonna burn your leg because you're under night vision and you literally don't know where all your stuff is sometimes, or at least that's just how I feel about it lately. But the other thing about it is that you don't see that super hot suppressor under night vision, which you will be able to see otherwise. It lights up like a popsicle. So basically, it doesn't give off that IR signature you would otherwise have. So I do like it for that reason. And the Coltac HTP suppressor cover is $88. So that's what I would put together for a firearm. Now, the last part of this kit is just the body armor setup that I'm wearing. So this is actually the Premier Body Armor Discreet Plate Carrier. It's $150 right now. Usually it's like $250. It's a slick carrier, very minimalist. But for being out at night and stuff and not having all that spatial awareness, I wanted something relatively slick and easy to wear, right? And then basically, I have the Stratus Max Level 4 plates in it. Right now, they're $250 a piece. Usually they're like $350, so I don't know what's going on with sales and stuff they have going on. But I'm running Level 4 plates. Now, if I was just patrolling without expectation of seeing anything, I might cut it down to like some Kevlar inserts, like level 3A or something. Because, mostly I'm just doing this to kind of patrol the property. But I'm trying to train better and I'm trying to get used to having the extra weight. So I just threw in the level 4 plates anyway, because yeah, it's more protection and it's more weight. So I get used to having that additional cumbersome aspect of wearing body armor. And then on the front, I've got the Medical Admin Assault Pouch, which is their MAP pouch. And that's $75, but usually it's $100. And one of the reasons why I like it is because basically it's a little bit of a pouch on the front, so I can store some really small things in it, like some extra batteries, a notepad. I have some food in there, just some small snacks, just to have a little bit of something in there, so I don't have to like take my backpack off anytime I need to deal with any like little problem like changing a battery. And then it also has magazine carrier inserts, so I have 3 extra 300 blackout magazines on the front, which allows me to reload and stay engaged if need be in a situation that I was hopefully never ever having to be faced with. So that's the night kit so far. I'm sharing this with you all not as a show and tell, like, hey, look what I've got, because I know a lot of people say that, like, oh, Match Prepper is always just telling us about his stuff. But I do this for many reasons. One, I'm the person who's looking for these ideas sometimes. So if I'm looking for them, I think somebody else might be looking for them as well. Two, I need your feedback and your suggestions and your advice, because honestly, I'm new to this and I might be doing things wrong, or I might have the wrong perception, or I might have, just a training curve that I need to overcome that you can help me with. So there's a lot of things here that I might just be completely off on, which means you can help me with that and I can become more efficient or stop wasting time training with things that don't make sense because I wasn't aware of an idea that somebody else already had out there. So there's a lot of reasons why I try to put this kind of content together. And I do think night vision is the way of the future. Very much like, how our optics systems are going and everything else related to like red dots on pistols. There is a push towards that futurist movement in the preparedness community, and I think night vision is a huge part of that equation. And one thing that I want to mention is that if we find ourselves in a kinetic conflict at any point in time with a country like China, North Korea, Russia, who knows, right? And if the sleeper cells that are within our country activate and start creating chaos all over the place, all of those groups have night vision, every single one of them. And they will use that to their advantage. And if you think it's going to be like Red Dawn, where everybody's getting ambushed in the middle of a canyon in broad daylight, I just don't think that's how things work anymore. I think nighttime is going to be a big deal during some of these events that we discuss. So just be aware of that. Look, if you can't afford night vision, don't beat yourself up over it. Take your time. It is a very expensive investment. But you can start planning for it ahead of time now. I had some of these things set up and in place before I ever even owned night vision, including things like Surefire vampire lights, because I knew that eventually I was going to have night vision. So I had Scalarworks mounts that were 1.93 inches in height. I had vampire lights ready to go. I had space on my rails for an eventual laser aiming module. There's a lot of things that you can consider now and put into place, so when that time comes, you're already ready to embrace it. Okay. Look, if you have any questions for me at all, you can go to matchprepper.com. I'll have a link below to part of my website that will take you right to where I have my Nightline affiliation, as well as affiliations with companies like Premier Body Armor, so you can check that out. Big thanks to Midway USA for always making videos like this possible. And besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.